Hi, everyone. It's so amazing that here we are at the end, and I can't believe our semester is over. It's been such a fabulous class. I'm Julie Zorn, and I want to present to all of you the first lesson of my three lessons for our final project. And I chose Passover. Passover has always been the most meaningful holiday for me because the fact that it's celebrated at home. And I love, um, it's always a little bit crazy. There's a lot of preparation. There's family drama sometimes in my house. But the fact is, we celebrate this holiday in kind of an informal way with the people that we love most. And I really love that about Passover. So, really, I wanted to be able to bring that idea of Passover, my love for it, and also that we celebrate it at home. Um, we celebrated at home and the informalness of it to my students. And actually, they weren't my students. I have to tell you where this came from. My husband went away to Israel for a couple of weeks in the beginning of April, and I ended up being the substitute for his third, fourth grade religious school class. And so it was right before Passover, and my lesson plans were Passover lesson plans. And so, before he left, he handed me, they have this book they use that's part of their curriculum, and it's a Jewish holiday book. I don't know the name of it, but it was dry, it was boring, and, Passover is the least dry, least boring holiday, in my opinion. There's just so much fun you can have. And part of a great portion of this book that we used was the Seder plate and learning the symbolic items that go on a Seder plate. And so rather than just read it in the book, which I was kind of asked to do, we know as educators that we learn by doing. And so I just passed out simple paper plates. You know these paper plates. You can buy them at the dollar store. A package of 100 for $1, and so it's cheap and it's an easy project. And I know teachers on the preschool level and elementary school level use them a lot. But for me, I decided to make a Passover diagram, a Seder plate diagram that could be used at home during Passover Seders. So, the kids during the Passover Seder, they'd be able to, listen to the story and have something to check to the story. And maybe I'm teaching something a little bit differently because, there's a lot of interpretation that goes along to the story of Passover. And maybe they're hearing something different for me than what is listed in their Haggadah. So anyhow, now I'm by no means an artist, and believe me, the idea of this project was not necessarily to create art or to create a pretty Seder plate. It was to create a diagram. So with that with that said, here is my Passover Seder plate diagram. And what I did is I asked the students to, when they came into the room, listed on, there's a whiteboard, were each of the items on the Seder plate. Each of the items they could list. There was maror and karpas and chatzeret and charoset, zeroa, and beitzah. And I had it, these are students that are learning Hebrew. That's not done during the Sunday religious school. It's done at Hebrew school. And so I thought for some Hebrew practice, and they're really learning just how to craft the letters. And you can see I'm not far beyond that myself. And so I actually had them, I had the Hebrew written, I had the transliteration written, and I had the symbolic meaning written on the board. And oh no, I didn't have the symbolic meaning. Forgive me for a second. So we went through each one. I asked the students to draw, 6 circles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Write the name of the item. Oh, the translation. That was the third thing. Write the name in Hebrew, write the transliteration, and then write the translation of what the item was. And they could draw a picture if they wanted to. And so then after they completed that, we went, and I always call this crowdsourcing. I hate repeating information that they already know. So I asked them, what do you think the beitzah, the egg, is for? Why do we have a beitzah on the Seder plate? You know, and most of them didn't know that it represents life. What is it about the parsley? What do we do with the parsley? And they knew that you dip it in salt water. They knew the salt water represented tears, you know, the tears of the Jews. They didn't know that it was representing the springtime. And haroset, surprisingly, they didn't understand about mortar. But, you know, it was, you know, I asked them what each of these things were. And so after we had this long discussion and we talked about each of the items on the Seder plate, then I asked them to go through, and then you can see in the notes, in their own words, I had them write out what, you know, that just kind of point to the circle, what each of these things mean. And so, you know, in their own words. And if, you know, they couldn't remember or they were confused about it, they could either ask a friend, they could raise their hand and ask me, but they did. They created this diagram. And eventually, each one of them had completed it. They were kind of proud of them, too, which was cute. It was sweet. And then when they were done, we had, let's see, we finished completing it, and then we had a discussion afterwards. And I asked them a few questions. Here, I'm going to get that out. Let's see. I asked the students, I said, first of all, why is it so important to have a Seder plate on a table, what, you know, during Passover? And, you know, I said, these are not just items on a plate. They actually help us, you know, we concluded they help us remember the story. They help us when we're eating haroset, you know, remember that the Jews were slaves and they had to build buildings. So it's a really cool experiential way of doing it. I asked them, why do you think God instructed us to do it in this way, that we have ceremonial items that we eat? And, you know, the idea was that, you know, we learn by doing, just like we as educators know today that, you know, God knew this. And that knowing that if we had these symbolic things, that if we were taking little tastes, that it would engage us. And so it's just such a good learning opportunity, a whole Passover Seder. And so then I asked them, why is it so important for us to remember this story even in the first place? And so then they, you know, we talked about the Exodus and how it's important because it reminds us what the Jewish people went through. It's, you know, if we didn't become free, if we hadn't gone through that, would we have been able to endure all that time in the desert? And, you know, we eventually received the Torah and eventually got to Israel. And so it all led up to it, and how important that is, and to remember, because it's the history of our people. And then the last part of this, and they loved that, they thought this was so funny. I told them, you know, this isn't exactly attractive, but bring it to your Passover Seder. And while you're sitting at the Seder, you'll be able to look at your little Seder plate, and as they're telling the story and they're reading about it in the Haggadah, if there's anything that they left out, by all means, interject and add a little bit of an extra commentary. Or if there's anything they forgot, just let them know about it. And so that was it. That was, it's such a simple lesson plan, but it was so much better than reading in a book. So there was just a creative idea for all of you. And I hope that it works for you, and that it's just a simple, out-of-the-box way of teaching this idea and bringing it home. Thanks so much, everybody, and I hope you have a great summer. Bye-bye.